So, right, everybody, and welcome to our second day of language learning today. And again, also for the second day, we have the motto of English as global language. We are starting today with our so-called root talks. Root talks are sessions inspired by the TED format. If you're familiar with that, just as TEDs to invite very accomplished people, we thought we'd take the opposite and would be more interested, I guess, in inviting some of the more innovative approaches in language learning, or specifically learning and teaching English today. I shouldn't forget to say my name. I'm Kirsten Winkler. I'm the founder of EduQuest. We are an education media site, and I'm co-organizing with Shiv. Shiv is the co-founder of Language Lab. Just two quick organizational things before we start with the first talk today. So you can watch this live on YouTube or Facebook. So please also comment on Facebook. We can also see your YouTube comments if you have questions for our presenters. If you follow LLTCon on Twitter, please use the hashtag we created for the conference. That's #LLTCon in one word. And that's basically, I guess, all from me. Shiv later on is going to tweet out a little survey about how you liked the conference and the individual sessions. So please take the 2 or 3 minutes to answer the survey. And I would like to give it over to our first presenter today, Jason R. Levine. Jason is based in New York. He is, I guess, more famously known as Fluency MC. And his presentation, he calls himself a knowledge entertainer. And his presentation is, in his presentation, he will cover his, I guess, invention or theory of collolearn. And yeah, we are all ears, Jason. Take it from here, and hope we are all going to enjoy what you have to talk about.
Well, I sure hope so. It's an honor and privilege to be here, Shiv and Kirsten. It's a great conference. I'm enjoying it very much. And thanks to everybody who came today to see this talk. And what I'll do is talk for about questions. As Kirsten said, you can ask them in several different places, and we can always continue these discussions on Facebook, through email, my website afterwards. So as Kirsten said, I go by Fluency MC when I make songs and videos to teach different subjects, but mainly English as a second language and a foreign language, and to train English language teachers. I'm also an English specialist with the U.S. Department of State. I've been fortunate to, I've been invited to different countries to train teachers and work with students, and this was in Tunisia last year. And my main thing now that I'm focusing on is I'm working at WizIQ, online virtual classroom community of students. It's a very exciting place, and a lot of really interesting things are happening there, and I'm happy and proud to be a part of that. More on that you'll see in the future. If I ask you, well, if I show you Nuku'alofa, does it ring a bell? Can you think of a word that would follow it? How about Rome? Maybe some of you are thinking Rome, Italy. Maybe something else, but probably that. How about Douglas? Douglas, maybe something, probably nothing. How about Michael? Any Michael Jacksons? Michael Jordan, perhaps? How about 8 times 7? If you're not good at math, or math stresses you out, or you're learning math, maybe you're thinking 8 sets of 7 or 8 plus 8. But most of us, we don't do that. We think 8 times 7, 56. It's one chunk. It's one item in our heads. We don't have to stop and think about it. Right? So if you think about language that way, like your regular verbs, do you do drink, drank, drunk? Or do you say drink, is it drank? It's kind of like 8 plus 8, right? You can stop and think, or you can just know it automatically. Nuku'alofa is the capital of Tonga in the South Pacific. Why am I talking about this? Well, what I focus on is building a knowledge base for language acquisition using collocations, word chunks. So explain what? Maybe explain something to someone, or explain what you mean. Adjectives before food, delicious, very common one. Totally, if something comes to your mind right away, totally, it's because you've heard that collocation, that word combination so many times. A bus, could be a bus goes somewhere, or a bus stop, like a compound noun. Blank, smoking. These are collocations, and very early in my teaching, which started about 15 years ago, I recognized the importance of collocations. I fell in love with something called the lexical approach. Some of you may know about. I'll mention again in a moment. And collocations are these chunks of language that in our first language we acquire and build our vocabulary and grammar knowledge of our first language. And the same thing happens in the second language, though, as we know the environment in learning the second language is often different. And that's what I'm really here to talk about. What can we do as second language learners and teachers to make the environment for second language acquisition better, more like first language acquisition, if we can. So the lexical approach. Central tenet, language consists of grammaticalized lexis, not lexicalized grammar. It's just a fancy way of saying that really vocabulary is language. Grammar is the glue that connects it together, right? And the building blocks are these collocations that we're looking at. I started using collocations so much in my teaching that my students and I shortened it to collo. So instead of just thinking, you know, what's a synonym for explain, you know, what's a collo for explain, or collo knowledge, using the verb, oh, acquire knowledge, share knowledge, profound knowledge, right? Those are collos. It's good to have a short term for students in the classroom, right? Collocation sounds a bit lofty, or collocate, the verb, is even worse, I feel. I started making posters. These are on Facebook, on my Facebook page. They're free to share, print, download, whatever you like, and you can make your own, obviously, too. Here, the head word, stress, I have verbs, I think just verbs here, right? Verb collocates for stress. Change, the verb change, right? So change something. This one's love, and you can see where the collos are in different positions around it. This PowerPoint, by the way, since I'm zooming through these slides, totally available to you. Just email me. I send out PowerPoints all the time to people, so no problem with getting that later, because I know I'm going to be going fast. But as I said, these collo posters, as we call them, are all on Facebook. So even grammar, right? You think, well, grammar is not vocabulary, or we have to teach things like countability. Really? Because if you ask my daughter, who's 5 years old, 6 years old now, you know, what a countable noun is, or you ask most of the people who are native speakers of English, they don't know what it is. They didn't learn it that way. They learned it through collocations. And my daughter, by the way, which is very normal for her age, will still say, you know, so many stuffs, because she hasn't gotten enough exposure to so much stuff. Her brain is still making stuff countable. And you can see also, even getting into the syntax of the language, you've got collocations with adjective and prepositions, but not just the prepositions, but what comes after the preposition. All of that, whatever is really high frequency chunks, those are what we need to get exposed to build our second language. So I made these posters, right, that I showed you. They weren't as nifty as they are now, because we have these apps that can make things. I'm not a good artist, so I made horrible posters. But my students used to make posters. We made collocation dominoes. We made board games. We made collo cards. And then one day, well, I should say before I start this little story here, it was great. We had fun, but we had a problem, which was I didn't see my students getting enough exposure to the collocations, enough repetition. Right? But I was very wary of the problem in past methods, audiolingual, for example, of doing a lot of repetition that was boring and meaningless. So how could my students get enough exposure to these chunks to really start building their vocabulary in English? And then one day, I was teaching a class, ESL class in New Jersey, and college class, and I was talking and I said, you know, I always, and one of my students said, Coca-Cola. And I stopped and I said, what is she talking about? And then it hit me. At that time, the Coca-Cola slogan, which was on billboards everywhere, the radio, television, right, was always Coca-Cola. The student had made a collocation. She'd made the collocation not by studying it, not by trying to learn it, simply by being exposed to it enough times, right? And how was she exposed to it? So I started to think, well, she was not studying. That meant, well, she was like on the bus and she saw always Coca-Cola. She was just sort of, you know, not thinking, just relaxing. Or in a commercial on television when she's watching a program she enjoys. And always Coca-Cola. I can't sing either. How about just? I started testing these, you know, words that were so common in slogans. Just, my students said, just do it. I had a Japanese student who was very low level. We were looking at a map together in a private lesson of the United States, just looking at it, and he barely had any English, but he pointed at the state of Kentucky and said, Kentucky Fried Chicken. And he was so excited to make that observation because, as I think we know and we reflect on being children and learning language and now learning collocations, it feels good. You feel confident when you've got that chunk. So he knew Kentucky Fried Chicken before. He had no idea that Kentucky was a state in the United States. So this was interesting to me because I saw, oh, corporations who've got lots of money to do commercials and repeat and have you watch when you're not trying to learn, they've got this ability to teach collocations better than I do. What were these students doing? They were not memorizing, right? They were not memorizing because they weren't trying to learn. I started talking about learning by heart. Lullabies that our grandmother sings, we don't try to memorize those. Songs on the radio, storybooks that our parents read us multiple times, or we read ourselves later. We just remember that naturally. We learn by heart. Always, Coca-Cola is not a collocation that is very useful, right? Always late, always tired, always in a good mood. Much better, but my student at that time didn't have those. She had always Coca-Cola, but she didn't have these other great collos. How about just? Students who said just do it, they didn't have just a second, just in time, just a friend, and there are so many others. I needed some way, right, to get collos that I knew were high frequency and important for their communication in English stuck in their heads the same way that the commercials were getting those stuck in their heads. I coined this this expression, this slogan, I guess I have, the 3 R's, relax, repeat, remember. It's a play off another 3 R's on purpose, which is reading, writing, arithmetic, which is this insane idea of going back to basics and not focusing as much on, you know, humanities and arts and things like this. The 3 R's, relax, like in front of the TV, repeat, like how they give you all that repetition, and as a result, you remember. Great example. When I was in high school, I had a great European history class. I loved it. I studied. I did great. I got an A. I remember nothing today. This is late 80s. Nothing about European history because I was so stressed trying to get the best grade. But I remember every commercial from that time. I've gone back to YouTube, you know, Big Red chewing gum, Crave cat food. My kitty cat craves chicken. I can remember, I have cat food commercials from the 80s that I haven't heard since then, stuck in my head, but I can't remember the details of how World War I started. And this is ridiculous. And it's the same thing with language learning. Students get repetition of certain things, but not enough of what they need to build, like irregular verbs. So here's basically what I'm saying. An English language learner who lacks the ability to automatically recall collocations lacks a foundation on which to build accurate and fluent communicative skills. The lexical approach was right on, I think, in so many ways, maybe almost everything, but textbooks and worksheets and flashcards that they got into producing, they don't provide enough exposure. So I needed some way to do it. I came up with the idea of making music because I was doing music anyway, and I started making music based on hip-hop music and writing lyrics that had all of these collocations that I knew the students needed and wanted to build their communication skills. I have a song coming out, a free MP3 called Stick 'em, coming out in a few days. I got a lot more music coming out. And I just want to say, this sort of reiterate a little bit, but Collo-Learn, what I do, it's based on the principle that when we're relaxed and actively engaged in communicative activities, right? So not doing boring repetition, right? No way. Repeated exposure to collocations forms this foundation of accurate and fluent language. On top of the foundation, we can build critical and creative thinking skills to achieve our communicative goals. So it's not about just, let me skip over here. Maybe you've seen this before. It's not just about the knowledge base, but I'm about the knowledge base, not because I think that that's where we need to stop. On the contrary, I want everyone moving up. We need to get into critical and creative thinking for, you know, billions of reasons we don't need to talk about here. We all agree on that, I hope. So I'm all about that recall, right? How can we get enough automaticity in the language we need? And here is an easier way to sort of sum it up. And this is from a song, so I'll demonstrate a little bit. Let's build a base to support higher thought and hold on to all of the things that we're taught, right? So that's that base, whether it's irregular verbs, countable and uncountable noun, collos, modal verbs, phrasal verbs, conditionals, whatever it is, right? I put all those into the songs. And I don't think it has to be songs. You can do any kind of repetition in a communicative activity when you're engaged, but there are some wonderful things about songs. That's not really the point of this presentation, but one of them you can see here, which is the stress, right? Let's build a base to support higher thought. That's how we speak. So if we point out the stress in the songs, which is what I do, we're also doing a lot of work with pronunciation, listening skills, and many more things we don't have time to talk about today. I did a little reworking, like many people do, of Bloom's taxonomy. That's the old-fashioned Bloom's taxonomy hierarchy of objectives there. Put in my Collo and Spark there. Spark, by the way, sorry, superpowered automatic recall of knowledge. Can you remember that? Superpowered automatic recall of knowledge. That's the idea of what you get, right, when you do enough, get enough exposure to collocations, right? So if you've got drink, drank, drunk, if I say just, and you say just a second, just do it, just in time, just a moment, just a little bit, right? Good. What happens if you lack a base of knowledge? This is the last thing I want to talk about today, but it's really important. Many examples of this. One example is in math. I think I referred to it before, but if you're trying to do a wonderful problem in critical, creative thinking with math, but you're counting on your fingers, doesn't work. If you're trying to write an essay or you're in interview for a job and you have to stop and translate or think about irregular verbs, it's the same thing, right? It's that translation. It's not the automaticity. My wife is from West Africa, from Benin. I've been to Africa 4 times now, which is a lot to someone like me who hasn't traveled very much, actually. But you know what? Before I made a song about this continent, it didn't matter how many times I looked at it. It didn't matter how many times I thought about it. I really didn't have in my head the geography of Africa. And not because I wanted to be able to say, I know the capital of Tanzania, but so that I could connect more to it. And that's the idea of critical and creative thinking, whether it's geography, math, or language learning. So I made a song. I just demonstrated a little bit. Moroccans, don't be mad at me. I have the Western Sahara map in here. I couldn't find my other good map. It goes like this. Let's begin our journey on the coast of North Africa, Rabat, Morocco, and Algiers, Algeria, due east to Tunis, Tunisia. Then south down the coast to Tripoli, Libya, right? It goes like that. If you don't have the knowledge base, then when you have people talk about Africa on television, countries, you're not going to connect to it. If you don't have a knowledge base, vocabulary, high frequency collocations, irregular verbs I keep going back to, but you're not going to be able to understand enough and connect enough and then build up. One way to build up, I have a show called the Weekly English Workout on WizIQ. This is a little slide from that show where we do a lot of practice with the songs and with collos. I have a Facebook page that's very active with teachers and learners, so please check it out, Fluency MC on Facebook. This is the Fluency MC. This is the Fluency family. We have more countries even than this represented now. This is a little outdated. I'm not going to talk about these two slides. They're in here in case you want to get a little more deep into it. Like I said, I can send you the PowerPoint, no problem. YouTube channel, if you're looking for the songs and the videos, that's definitely the place to go. Fluency Family on Facebook is the place to chat and connect around lots of different topics in English language learning and teaching. And finally, I'll leave you with this. You'll learn without looking when you stop feeling bored and stressed. Having fun is when you learn the best. Learn without looking, another thing that I came up with, it's that idea, right? You're not studying, you're just relaxing, and as a result, you learn often much more than you would have if you studied, and probably remember it for longer too. Oh, one more. When you relax and enjoy your time, it's easy to learn with rhythm and rhyme. So that's it. Leaves a few minutes for questions. I'm sorry, I know I went quickly, but I'll be happy to email the PowerPoint and engage in any kind of dialogue through my website, Facebook, YouTube, anytime.
Wonderful. I was waiting if there's one more thing to come up, but
and also, no, that is it, Kirsten.
If you want to stop the screen sharing, then we can actually see you, because I'm sure maybe our other panelist Ronan might have a question, or Shiv, of course, as co-founder of Language Lab, so also, of course, very active in the ESL space. Maybe you want to start with a question for Jason about, about the concept ColloLearn, or his approach in general. Or if we just take audience questions.
All right. I have a question. So it's awesome. I really like what you're doing. I really like how you put hip hop into music. What made you choose, I guess, hip hop over other genres, I guess?
No, that's a really important question. There's several reasons. The most obvious one when I began doing it was that I've been a hip-hop DJ for a while. I grew up with hip-hop, with people that rhymed and DJ'd much better than me. So I was always playing around with it.
Right.
And so that's the first reason. Actually, I made sentences for students to repeat, and I was like, this is boring. They're never going to do it. This is the same old, same old. So I wrote Stick, Stuck, Stuck, which is the song that's still the most popular today, actually, for a group of Korean students who are having a horrible time with irregular verbs. And then I just kept doing it. I stuck with hip-hop. Not just because of my interest in it, but because it's the most like, oral discourse. So songs with lots of melody where they're twisting the stress around, that's not as useful. Hip-hop is much more like the rhythms of conversation, although people that write hip-hop who are not teaching English as a second language tend to move the stress around in weird places, and also use dialects and everything else. So I focus on how I'm not teaching students to rap, I like to say, or saying how can we use that to make it more like real conversation.
Do you recommend any artists to any of your students, like any hip hop artists to listen to?
Yeah, I don't have to anymore because they recommend them to me. I'm so out of touch. Wow. I mean, I can recommend the more like what people call the old school. I feel like is my current stuff, and old school to me is like 1981. But anyway, I don't know. Right now, I can tell you who I really like. I mean, I really like Lupe Fiasco, Immortal Technique. I still have respect for people like Jay-Z, what they're doing. But yeah, I listen to a lot of underground stuff from a long time ago, I guess, is the best way to describe what I listen to.
All right, awesome.
Sounds like you build up what we could call a grassroots movement. Of course, now you're very popular on YouTube. You have a big Facebook following, so you might not actually need to take the traditional path, and it's maybe even definitely less innovative and maybe not necessary for you. But what is sort of the feedback of some of the more established people or players in the ESL space on what you are doing there?
Yeah, I'm lucky. I mean, a lot of it was just like luck and timing, but I feel like what I'm doing, I don't call it a method. I don't even call it an approach as much as it's materials design for supplementing in curriculum. So, you know, if I have a song, I do have a song for gerunds and infinitive complements. Now, everyone's studying gerunds and infinitives in some way in their country. Whatever way you're learning gerunds and infinitives, if you got a list, you know, gerund plus verb plus gerund, verb plus infinitive, then you can use my song. So, you know, I'm not saying, you know, don't use your curriculum. And of course, most of my teachers and students around the world, they have curriculum they have to follow. So I'm not trying to supplant that. So, you know, publishers, I'm publishing with Oxford University Press, for example, you know, it's just they'll take my stuff, a chant that I write, what I do, and put it in with what they're doing, and that's really where I see, you know, what I'm doing as being most effective, not a comprehensive method or program.
Benjamin has a question from you for you via Twitter, and he asks about the time. How much time in class do you spend in this approach?
That's a great question. You know, a lot of people assume that, you know, I go in the classroom and just start rapping with my students, and actually it's not like that at all, because where I've taught, it's usually the same case. There's a curriculum. There are things we need to do. So I'm using what I do as a supplement. I also make card games with collocations and other ways. Use a lot of movie clips for dictation and repetition through movies and TV shows. So, you know, it's not just that. But as far as time, truthfully, I haven't taught I've been, you know, academic director for the last few years. I just left to go to WizIQ to begin some big courses there for teachers and students. So recently, it's kind of hard to say. I guess when I was teaching a TOEFL class and I was making TOEFL raps last year, which was really great. I would say, you know, if the week had 20 hours in it, maybe like six of those hours were spent on Collotunes. And again, to supplement what we were doing with TOEFL.
Great. I think your son's graduation is approaching very quickly. So I'm
okay. I can take one more.
All right. So
if there is one more, I don't want to presume there is, but if there is, I'm happy.
Do you have another question, Schiff, or from the audience, yes. Twitter or YouTube?
I certainly do. I certainly do. Do you find students can remember these raps 5 years later or 10 years later, and it's sort of stuck in their brain forever?
I'm eagerly awaiting to find out. Since I started doing this around 2008, well, that's 5 years. Wow. You know what? As far as the early stuff that I did with irregular verbs, I did stuff, collocations with say and tell, and early geography. Yes, I see students and I hear from them. They're like, oh, I still, especially the verbs, I still have all the irregular verbs in my head. I can sing the song and remember them. And it's funny because, you know, native speakers, we don't go around thinking drink, drank, drunk, you know, sing, sang, sung. But if you go to a native speaker and you say drink, they say drank, drunk. So native speakers have them up here automatically. And so the idea is, you know, can you do that just through rap? No, any kind of repetition. I mean, I remember things from my boring high school textbook, like the audiolingual conversations, but they were so meaningless, and they weren't based on high-frequency vocabulary. You know, it was like, "Alors, Delphine, ici Alain, allons-y dans le jardin. Oh, il neige chic." You know, I don't need that, but you know, I can't use you know, more meaningful language to communicate in French. I don't have that stuff. But yeah, I hope in a few years. I'll keep hearing people, wow, I still remember that. Just like you said you remember those commercials, you know, I remember your songs. So I hope so.
Great. So I guess we let you run off now.
Yes,
thanks so much. It was great having you today. And yeah, we are definitely going to follow up. And the channel is called Fluency MC, or...
If you look for Collo Learn or Fluency MC, you'll find everything easily. If you do a Google search for Fluency MC, you'll see my website, Collo and Spark, where you can go to Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, and you'll also see the YouTube channel and Facebook come up.
I'm sure, more than sure. All right, Jace, enjoy the graduation and have a great day.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. A lot of fun. Thank you. Bye. Sure.